The day the man got married, he didn't lose anything all at once. There were no arguments, no tragedy, no obvious warning signs. There was silence, an internal silence, almost imperceptible. An uncomfortable thought crossed his mind without permission. This should feel like an upgrade, and yet it feels like a surrender. No one noticed. Not the guests, not the family, not the photographer capturing his perfectly rehearsed smile. The music played, the toasts celebrated, the dress floated like a promise. He signed, and when he signed, he didn't just put his name on a piece of paper. He placed his desire into custody. It wasn't the fault of love, or romance, or the woman. It was an agreement older than his own story. The silent expectation that when a man marries, he must become the most domesticated version of himself. A hero without a sword, a sailor without the sea. From that day on, the man learned to trade fire for order, adventure for routine, honesty for caution. It was a pact wrapped in elegant words: stability, commitment, home. None of those words are bad, but the man who doesn't know himself signs them blindly and pays with the one thing he should never negotiate: his inner freedom. This is not an attack on marriage, nor a rejection of love. It's a psychological portrait of the man who married without awareness and shut off his compass. And when the compass goes dark, any road feels right, until it's too late to turn back. The trap doesn't appear in the first month, nor the second. Sometimes not even the first year. The trap installs itself quietly, through reasonable routines, through small daily negotiations that always seem harmless. First, language changes. We replaces I, ours replaces mine. Then time changes. Weekends get scheduled, friendships get filtered, silence gets filled with screens and obligations, the house becomes organized, and so does the man. Desire, once a wild animal, begins to speak softly. It asks for air, it's given schedules. It asks for mystery, it's given calendars. It asks for adventure, it's given explanations. The man stops listening to his hunger for life and starts listening to duty. This is not a moral failure, it's a failure of awareness. He stops asking who he is and focuses on who he is supposed to be. Then comes the most dangerous phase: emotional correction, not arguing to avoid conflict, not saying uncomfortable truths to avoid hurting. Storing small truths that over time turn into stones. Stones the man carries quietly so the perfect picture doesn't crack. The invisible trap isn't marriage. The invisible trap is forgetting. Forgetting what made him a man before he signed. His presence, his word, his ability to say no when something betrays his essence. The man didn't lose his freedom at the altar. He gave it away in installments, paying a price he never fully read. There is a silent mechanism shaping the married man without his awareness. Not mysticism, not fate, just everyday psychology. Before he chased demanding goals, projects, vision, purpose. After he became a peace manager, success is no longer measured by what he creates, but by what he avoids: conflict, tension, difficult conversations. The hero disappears. The manager of domestic harmony appears. The man confuses maturity with resignation. He stops training his body because it's no longer a priority. He stops reading because there's no time. He stops choosing because it's better not to complicate things. He calls it balance, it's abandonment. Before, his validation came from inner progress. Now it comes from external approval. He's present, reliable, a good man, all respectable labels. But if earning them required silencing his truth, the price was too high. Desire doesn't die suddenly. It gets domesticated. It's scheduled, negotiated, turned into ritual. The mystery that once fed attraction is replaced by a to-do list. Where there was fire, there is now a calendar. Guilt becomes an internal guard. Don't think that. Don't do this. Don't say that. The man builds a police force in his own mind, not to protect him, but to monitor him. And desire, feeling criminal, learns to hide. Kindness is a virtue. Kindness driven by fear of discomfort is a prison. The man stops setting boundaries out of fear of reaction. He becomes a diplomat to himself and forgets that his first loyalty is to his own truth. Without realizing it, he starts defining himself by roles: husband, provider, support, all honorable titles but dangerous when they replace identity. The man stops asking, "Who am I when I'm not fulfilling a role?" This is not a prophecy. It doesn't happen to everyone. But when it does, it's not because of someone else's malice, but because of personal disconnection. Marriage doesn't ruin the man. The man who stops knowing himself inside marriage does. And so, without scandal, without drama, without headlines, a voice goes quiet. His. Daniel was 34 when he decided to get married. Not for eternal love, not out of obligation, for calm. After years of chaos, he wanted peace. He believed marriage would be his refuge. At first, everything shined. She was sweet, organized. He felt lucky. He told his friends he had finally found balance. What he didn't understand was that balance doesn't come from outside. It comes from within. Time began reshaping priorities. Days filled with tasks. Weekends filled with commitments. Daniel, once a man of projects, became a man of routines. He stopped training, stopped writing, stopped dreaming. He worked, paid, complied. Desire died quietly. First, it became less frequent, then predictable, then absent. She said she loved him, but with the voice of someone who respects, not desires. And he began to love her with the patience of someone caring for a plant, not the passion of someone burning a forest. Marriage became peace without oxygen, perfect order, no soul. Daniel didn't scream, didn't rebel. He simply faded. At night, when everyone slept, he stared at the mirror and wondered when he stopped feeling alive. He couldn't hate her. She did nothing wrong. She fulfilled her part of the deal. The problem was, he never truly knew what his part was. Daniel didn't lose love. He lost fire. And when a man loses fire, he begins to blend into the walls around him. He stops existing and becomes another piece of furniture in the house he built. Marcos wasn't cynical or bitter. He had simply learned to observe. By 40, he had seen enough men disappear behind "I do" to understand that stability isn't signed. It's built. He met Laura on a trip without searching. She had character, intelligence, a calm authority. Marcos made no promises. He simply showed up as himself. And instead of trying to change him, she chose him as he was. They lived together for 3 years. No contract, no altar, no ring. Not because love was missing, but because they both knew that love requiring legal guarantees already doubts itself. Marcos didn't need to swear eternity. He needed to be real every day. She didn't want a provider. She wanted a man with purpose. Something curious happened. Because nothing was signed, they took care of each other more. Respect grew where control never entered. Desire stayed alive because neither felt imprisoned. When they argued, there were no threats, only pauses. When they missed each other, it wasn't habit, it was choice. When they made love, it wasn't duty, it was desire. Marcos discovered that freedom doesn't kill love, it purifies it. Because loving freely requires presence, not possession. It requires choosing the other every day, without the comfort of contracts or the trap of, "You're already mine." There were no papers, but there was truth. No ceremony, but there was connection. No eternal promises, but there were conscious decisions. And when a man chooses love without losing himself, he doesn't just keep his freedom, he earns respect. Marcos understood he didn't have to reject love to be free. He only had to stop confusing love with ownership. That was the greatest lesson of his life. The deepest commitment is the one that doesn't require chains. Between Daniel and Marcos, there is an invisible line. Both loved. Both dreamed of peace. One searched for it by signing, the other by waking up. Daniel chose the path applauded by the world, but wrong for himself. Marcos chose the questioned path, but did so consciously. Daniel sought security. Marcos sought meaning. And while the world applauds security, meaning is what keeps a man alive, because love without freedom rots, and freedom without love empties. Balance is not choosing one or the other. It's loving without enslavement and being free without selfishness. The modern man has become a domesticated reflection. He follows invisible orders no one explicitly gave, yet everyone repeats, get married, mature, settle down. And in doing so, many stop being the head of their lives and become the tail of their own decisions, not out of cowardice, but fear of being alone. Because solitude is a brutal mirror. It shows you what you can't tolerate about yourself. And for many, marriage became an elegant way to avoid looking. But there is a void no relationship fills, the void of a man who doesn't belong to himself. You can have family, home, stability, and still feel absent from your own life, because true companionship doesn't come from who sleeps beside you, but from who still lives inside you. When a man marries asleep, he wakes up late, and when a man loves awake, he doesn't need marriage to be complete. The day the man got married, the world applauded. They said, now you're set, now you have direction, now you've matured. What no one told him was that he had also handed over his fire, his hunger, his silence. From that day on, he spoke more softly, looked less far, felt only with permission. Without realizing it, he stopped belonging to his instinct and started belonging to a structure. Marriage didn't kill him, it put him to sleep. It taught him to stay still instead of moving forward, to remain silent instead of speaking, to accept instead of confront, to survive instead of live. Not all marriages are prisons, but all men who stop knowing themselves become their own jailers, because it's not the contract that chains you. It's forgetting who you were when you signed it. Freedom is not being alone. Freedom is being able to stay or leave without fear of disappearing, and few achieve that inside a forever. Real love doesn't need judges, witnesses, or rings. It needs two awake people, capable of choosing without fear, capable of saying, I love you, without promising eternity. The day a man understands this, he looks at the world with fire again, not guilt. He loves from choice, not obligation. And that day, he is finally free again. If this story resonated with you, if at any point you felt like Daniel or want to live like Marcos, then this message was for you. Subscribe. Share this video with that friend who is slowly losing himself without noticing. Because we don't speak from hate. We speak from awareness. We don't sell illusion. We deliver truth. Hard, raw, necessary. See you in the next video. And remember, you don't need to get married to be complete. You only need to become yourself again.